Thank you, Madam Chair and Ranking Member Cruz, for holding today's hearing. Illinois sits at the center of our nation's freight rail network. All 7 Class 1 railroads run through our state, including Norfolk Southern, as they all converge near Chicago. The Chicago region's freight rail network is enormous. We have 3,865 miles of rail, nearly 1,400 of which is shared by passenger trains. We see 1,300 trains a day moving through the Chicago area, which is one of the most densely populated areas in the country. To say that rail safety is important to our state would be an understatement. Yet, over the past decade, there have been at least 272 hazardous material incidents involving trains in 70 different Illinois communities. Last year, we were tied for the 3rd highest total of hazardous material incidents in the nation. The bottom line is that what happened in East Palestine could have just easily happened in Illinois. And among the causes of rail accidents are blocked rail crossings, especially among trains that are carrying hazardous materials. To address this issue, our state passed a state law in 1999 to try to limit blocked rail crossings. However, the law was unfortunately overturned in 2008 by a state Supreme Court decision due to a federal preemption. Ms. Hamady, the Bipartisan Railway Safety Act would require the U.S. Department of Transportation to issue new regulations to help prevent trains carrying hazardous materials from blocking crossings due to railroad delays. Can you explain how that would improve safety in a freight rail hub like Illinois?
Senator, the NTSB has not weighed in on the blocked crossing issue. We don't have a recommendation on that, so it's not something we've looked at.
You don't have an opinion on what a train with hazardous materials in it blocking a rail crossing?
I think it can be a safety issue, certainly for first responder access to areas in communities, and having high hazardous materials could be an issue as well.
Thank you. Over my objection, as well as that of Senator Durbin and others among the Illinois congressional delegation, the Surface Transportation Board recently approved a merger of Canadian Pacific and Kansas City Southern. This merger will likely result in more and longer freight trains through the Chicago area, particularly the northwest suburbs. Ms. Hamady, without asking you to comment on the recently approved CP and KCS merger, can you explain the safety risks that could arise if a rail company injected more and longer freight trains, some of which may be carrying hazardous materials, into an already crowded rail corridor like Chicago with such a densely populated area?
Yeah, I will say for the East Palestine train, that one was not a particularly long train in our opinion at the board. The one in Springfield was a very long train. It was a 2.55-mile train. You have workers who have to maybe go back and stop and inspect an axle, and if you're walking back 2.5 miles, that is a lot
with your equipment
on the crew with the equipment and potential safety issues, as well as higher gross tonnage on the train, which is a big safety hazard.
Thank you. In 2021, the Federal Railroad Administration recommended penalties for 7,300 regulatory safety violations it found after inspecting railroads, hazardous materials shippers, and rail car lessors. Of those, 3,400 were assessed civil penalties for a total of $12.3 million. This is an average of $3,600 for each assessed violation. That same year, Norfolk Southern's net income was approximately $3 billion. Ms. Hamady, do you believe that the current level of civil penalties is an effective deterrent? And do you think Congress should consider raising them?
The NTSB doesn't have a position on civil penalties. I will say that most civil penalties, unfortunately, are negotiated pretty low. They will be assessed as a civil penalty, and then there is a conference portion where they will settle their penalties on pennies for a dollar.
Do you think pennies for a dollar is effective deterrent for a multi-billion-dollar company like Norfolk Southern?
I do not.
Thank you. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Senator Budd. I'm sorry, Senator Schmidt. Senator Schmidt. Senator Schmidt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. East Palestine